U.S. President Trump has taken a few victory laps recently, touting a string of legislative wins and what he calls major policy breakthroughs. But he's also facing a wave of backlash from within his own MAGA base. And this goes beyond Taco Trump. You know, Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. This is about sepsis, befalling a system that is bleeding trust. From immigration to Ukraine to the Jeffrey Epstein case, some of Trump's most loyal supporters are accusing him of backtracking on core promises. Now consider the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who moved in elite political circles. He died in federal custody back in 2019 in what was officially ruled a suicide. But his connections to powerful figures and the unusual circumstances surrounding his death have fueled years of speculation and conspiracy theories. And that is why many were counting on the Trump administration to release the Epstein client list until the Justice Department and the FBI concluded that there is no list. At Tuesday's White House cabinet meeting, a reporter tried to get some answers from Attorney General Pam Bondi, and then Trump cut in.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of his death?
Yeah, sure. If
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Well, let's bring in Matthew Sheffield. He's a journalist and former conservative media insider who's been closely tracking the evolution of the MAGA movement and how conspiracy thinking, like the obsession with Jeffrey Epstein, has become central to its identity. Matthew joins us tonight from Los Angeles. Matthew, it's good to have you with us. Let me ask you about the Epstein case. Why has it become so central to the MAGA movement? I mean, what does this story represent to them beyond the facts of the case?
Well, it is basically core to a lot of their epistemology, because a lot of these reactionary Republicans have become convinced that there is this giant secretive cabal of pedophiles who run the world and do everything and have gotten away with crimes for hundreds of years. And they've never had any evidence for this belief, but they really want to believe it. And so the Epstein case became kind of a totem if you will, a sacred relic almost in their epistemology. And so when now that this is being taken away from them, it's very traumatizing. And they're also afraid to question the great leader, Donald Trump, because ultimately, I mean, as we see from his own comments on Jeffrey Epstein and other people involved with that case, he seems unusually defensive on these topics and unusually solicitous of his former assistant, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Would you say then that this investment that we've seen in Epstein, is it about him, or is it more about the broader distrust of elite institutions and, as you were saying, this belief in hidden networks of power?
I would say that it's probably a mix of both. So that Epstein himself is regarded, as the first time where they ever could have, theoretically had some evidence. And it is, certainly the case that he had a number of very high-level connections, including to Donald Trump himself for many decades. And so, there's something that is very tantalizing about this particular case. But it's also, it isn't just the inherent, worth to them. It's also that Trump himself and many of the people who work for him have been actively fanning the flames of these delusions. Kash Patel, who is the FBI director, and then his one of his assistant FBI directors, Dan Bongino, were notorious for making completely unfounded claims about what the case entailed when they had no access to any of that information beforehand. And so in many ways, this dilemma that Trump and his administration are facing, it is completely of their own manufacture.
And do you think the MAGA base genuinely expected Trump to expose something new about Epstein, or was it more symbolic, a test of maybe his willingness to drain the swamp?
Oh, I think they genuinely expected something real to come out of this. That, again, they had been specifically hyped up by Trump administration officials before he came into office. But even after he came into office, the Attorney General Pam Bondi claimed that she had the, quote, client list on her desk. And that she was going to be releasing that information. But of course, it really doesn't make sense in a lot of ways that people who are engaging in criminal activities with, hundreds of people would not want to have that list, make a list of the people they had engaged in crimes with. Nobody does that in any crimes. And the only exceptions seem to be this one woman who had run a prostitution ring. But other than her, generally speaking, people who are engaged in felonious activities do not keep lists of their associates because that's incriminating. And it also might result in negative repercussions for the list keeper.
What about the other forces maybe that have been driving this obsession? I'm thinking about influencers such as Laura Loomer, Charlie Kirk, or even Tucker Carlson. I mean, were they a force that kept driving the obsession with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, so the way that right-wing media works is it is a cyclical, bidirectional system. So the audience very often is demanding certain things, and then the people who are who are the commentators, they see what the audience wants, and then they try to make content that is pursuant to those desires, which then in turn fans the flames of those demands. And so certainly we did see that with Loomer and many of these other individuals, none of whom have any privileged law enforcement access, and none of them have any sourcing of any kind in this regard. But that general type of thing doesn't really matter because in the reactionary philosophy, truth is based on who is saying something rather than actual verifiable facts. And so it can be confusing I think, to people who don't operate under that worldview, but It literally is the case that truth is a matter of authority for far-right individuals rather than verifiable facts.
Donald Trump, he's often walked a fine line between indulging conspiracies and claiming plausible deniability. Is this Epstein moment where that balancing act begins to fail?
It seems to be that this could be very damaging for him, and we have, in fact, seen at least a few of his supporters on social media saying that he's sold them out. But generally speaking, Trump has structured his public statements such that he's very good at deflecting blame from himself, and so what I suspect is going to happen is that he will probably fire one or more of these individuals, and then claim that we're going to go and launch an investigation into what happened, and the results will never come out. Is what I suspect will happen. And so, because again, like he's very good at, as I said, deflecting blame. He's not very good at creating policies. He's not very good at understanding how things actually work, which is why so many people who are the leaders of other countries have found him just so completely inscrutable and constantly changing in his opinions.
I want to let our viewers know you were once described as a rising star in the conservative movement. You've said yourself, you became disillusioned and rejected extremism. And I know you've covered the psychology of the MAGA movement. What happens when a movement built on a sense of betrayal begins to feel betrayed by its own leader? It's often hard to say because there's no fixed pattern for any of these interactions. But oftentimes, in some cases, so like there have been numerous end of the world cults that have been started where people had said that the world is going to end on a certain date here, and put it on your calendar. And then, of course, it never happens. And generally speaking, those a lot of times they tend to dissolve over time, but in many cases they don't. I used to be a member of the Latter-day Saint Mormon religion, and they believed their founder Joseph Smith said that Jesus Christ would return to the earth during his lifetime. And obviously that did not happen, and yet the religion still exists. So there are multiple paths that betrayals can be met with by adherents, and even more recently with regard to the QAnon movement, which was very heavily is a very strong component of the Trump electoral base. And the QAnon movement had predicted very early on in the first term of Donald Trump that he claimed that he had arrested Hillary Clinton in secret, and her and a number of other people, and obviously that never had happened. And so the movement had petered out, and now for a long time there was no postings from QAnon at all. The leader Q. And then now somebody who claims to be Q now again. So it's hard to say definitively what may or may not happen. Let me ask you though, to look into your crystal ball. Could this kind of MAGA backlash, if it grows, open the door for a post-Trump figure to claim the mantle of real populism? And if you think that's going to happen, who do you think would be best positioned to do that?
Well, I definitely do think it is likely that the inheritor of Trumpism will be somebody who criticizes Trump, because this is a movement that is not built on positivity. It's not built on actual policies. It's not built on improving the lives of the people who believe it. It's built entirely on negative thoughts. It's built on negative emotions about hating others, about fearing others, about using scapegoats. And so
not J.D. Vance.
This is probably going to, unlikely to be Vance. But I would say that, it's so when you look at the Republican Party, so Trump is, the current leader. But every single time before him in the past 50 years or so, it has the person who has risen to the top in most recent years has been somebody who in the congressional world. So we had like Newt Gingrich, for instance, he ran saying that the Republicans who came before him were terrible and we needed to get rid of them. And then he came into office and, then he became the great devil. And so, I would say somebody like Tucker Carlson probably is in a better position compared to J.D. Vance because he has a large media platform and he, already has a record of being critical of Trump. And that will give him some authenticity compared to somebody like J.D. Vance, who has, completely avoided criticizing Trump and obviously works for him now.
Journalist Matthew Sheffield. Matthew, interesting conversation. We'll be watching to see what Tucker Carlson does now and see if your prediction comes true. Thank you.
Thank you.